let's try to take this one step further, okay? And I want to ask you a favor. Try not to get offended by anything I could say, okay? Because I always try to talk about the real world, and we believers are so gentle that become sensitive sometimes. But worldviews can show us the world as it is. And that's good if we can see things the way they are, okay? So the next thing is that our worldview determines very important things, like for instance this. What is the value of a woman, in reference of a man? In your culture, what do people would like to be, a man or a woman? A woman, sorry for being a woman. In my culture, we call that machismo. No? Machism. I was with a group of indigenous pastors, and I asked them this question, and they were just like that, no? And which is better, to be a man or a woman? A man, of course. They said that naturally, And that's true in some places. But the only problem is that this is a worldview. It's powerful. It will determine life in certain ways. And consider what I told you before. You cannot act against your worldview. So women have very little chances to change this, no matter what it produces. One of the things I need you to keep in mind while we are talking about worldview is that ideas have consequences. Ideas have consequences. Ideas are immaterial things, spiritual things. Consequences are physical events. Okay? And worldviews are based on ideas. If I believe that women have no value or less value than a man, that will produce consequences. Right? And in some cases, it's a form, will produce something like this. That women will be considered useful only for minor jobs. Sometimes they consider them inferior intellectually. I don't know. Machismo can lead you to other lies. One lie opens the door for many lies. While men will have probably more opportunities in life, probably the father will decide to spend the money educating the man, but he won't waste the money educating the daughter. That happens everywhere, in some degree. It happens everywhere. It happened in my wife's family. My parents-in-law, they had 3 children, 2 girls and 1 boy. And the boy had a great education. He went to Germany. He became an engineer, while the daughters never get paid school. High school. But that was it. They had to educate themselves. And this thing happens sometimes unthinkably. They don't realize they are doing that. Okay? But when you have a lie in your worldview, that will produce bondage. It will produce oppression, injustice, corruption, suffering. poverty. Let me tell you in advance something very important. Wherever you see poverty, it means that people have a worldview based on lies. Okay? I will tell you very exciting things about this later. Poverty is not a group, a people who don't have things like money or cars. Most of us think that's poverty. Poverty is a group of people who don't have things. No, that's wrong. Poverty is people who produce poverty. Okay? Poverty is a product, very well elaborated, subconsciously. Okay? Sometimes very sophisticated. What I mean is you have to work hard to be poor. Trust me. Sounds funny, right? But poverty is not produced just because, I don't have. To get to that state, you have to walk subconsciously a road that led you to that position as a final product. Poverty is produced that way. Okay? We will see that later, more clearly. Okay? So, Machismo is a worldview, and is one of the reasons why in some cultures people are poor. I talked to you yesterday. If you have money to educate just one person, just one, and you have a boy and a girl, which one would you educate? If you're in a machismo, it's hard for me to say machism. Is that all right? Machism? If you are in a community where machism is the worldview, parents will spend money in educating the boy. But what happens when you don't educate the girl? If you educate the girl, she will be a mother and she will be able to educate her own children. And probably, in time, just by doing that, you have broken the chain of poverty in generations, just because the mother is a better person, more educated. But if the mother is an ignorant person, you will preserve poverty through generations. And in every poor community, you will find machismo as a common factor of the culture. Okay, so one of the things we have to do as Christians, is to take God's truth. In my community, they say that it's better to be a man than to be a woman. But what does the Bible say? What does the Bible say? They were made in God's image, both. They are both valuable. But remember this, because of my worldview, I see women, I see them with no value. And that's powerful. I have a story about this. Well, we were in Guatemala, we understood this very easily. So we were working as in a development and relief organization in the communities. So as believers, we decided to make a commitment. We are going to convince every parent to send their daughters to school. No matter what, we will insist. We will never stop doing it. And there was this friend. He's one of the most amazing believers I met in my life. He's an indigenous man. And he told me this story. I was talking to a man of the community about sending his girl to school, and there was no way to convince this man. We were just walking on the road. But all of a sudden, in front of us was the school of the community. The school of the community has 10 teachers, But indigenous communities don't have teachers of their own. Most of them come from the city by bus, you know. And it was funny, but out of 10 teachers, 9 were women, you know. 9 were women. So we were talking, and I couldn't convince her, and I saw they were, you know, getting down from the bus, and I saw them, and I said, yeah, okay, you tell me, do you think a teacher is a better person than you? And he said, yeah, okay, that's true. Do you think that a teacher is a person that can make much more money than you? Of course, they get very well paid. You know? So is it great to be a teacher? Yeah, okay, look at them. They are women. And he saw them and he said, right, I never saw it. You know why? Because a worldview lets you see things in one way and blocks your mind so you won't see the truth the other way. Okay? You understand that? I heard many stories about girls who suffer a lot because her fathers don't see anything good on them. Or they get embarrassed because they had a daughter instead of a son. Well, I adore my daughter. I sometimes think, I wish I didn't have those 2 boys, you know? I wish they were girls because they are so beautiful, they are so gentle, they are amazing. But it's the way you see them. Can you believe that there is an idea in your mind that forces you to see value in people, or you see nothing? That's amazing to me. Sounds almost diabolic. Right? It's interesting. That's why God wants us to live out His truth. There's no life without truth. I have come for you to have life and life abundantly, but no truth, no life. Machismo is a very nice thing that you can see in Bolivia. It's funny. I always make this idea. Think about a Bolivian family. They are eating, and when they finish, Dad steps up. He stands up and says, "Oh, well, that was nice. Thank you very much." And he goes to watch soccer. And the son does the same thing. "Thank you, Mommy. It was nice. It was delicious." And he goes to the TV to watch soccer with his father. And then the mother immediately says, "Okay, honey," to her daughter, "wash the dishes and do this and do that." But she asks the daughter to do the domestic chores, but she doesn't ask the man. You know? And you can come and say, "Excuse me, ma'am," and you take the microphone and say, "Why do you ask the daughter to do that, to wash the dishes, and you don't ask the boy?" And the mother would say, "Because he's a boy." "Yeah, okay, he's a boy, we know that, but why doesn't he wash his dishes?" "Because he's a boy." You know? "And why does she wash his dishes?" "Because she's a girl." Your worldview determines how your mind processes logical things. Your logic is wrong, but works. She works hard. And when she gets married, she will still be washing dishes. And she won't read a book. And she will know how to teach their children. Now think about this. It's not a worldview of men. Because guess who taught me to be a machista? Guess who did it? My mother. Sounds funny, right? Mostly mothers are the ones who teach children that it's better to be a man than a woman. And it sounds funny, but it's right. And it goes forever. It's hard to stop that. But it produces poverty. In some senses, it's a strange thing, you know. I have seen this in my country. Men, boys, they are not very well taken care. You know, because they are boys, you buy a soccer ball and say, okay, take it, go with your friends. And he goes outside and plays all day. But the daughter, no. You have to watch your little brothers. You have to help your mom. And the little girl goes to the market and she sees how mom is complaining about the money. It's not enough for all things. And she's helping hard to her mother. And sometimes you knock the door and the little girl with the little boy opens the door and says, no, my mom is not here and she's working hard, but the other guy is just playing around. You don't notice, but in the human nature of this girl, you are producing a strength. It's a moral strength. And it's typical to see that when you go to a poor community, you see that women are working. And they don't stop, and they suffer, and they do. And if men don't bring money, they do whatever, you know. And that happens in Bolivia. They take candies or whatever and go to the street and they sell and they make food and they sell food and they do everything. But man, very soon he gives up and he says, "Oh, I can't get a job. Let's drink." And they start drinking and they fail. But the wife is working and taking the kids to the school and doing whatever. And they make amazing things. You know why? Because they suffer from their childhood. But men are weak. He goes to drink, he sees his family suffering, and he prefers to disappear. And where is your dad? I don't know. Many years I don't see him. But my mother is there working and working and working. It's amazing. It's incredible. That thing happens very frequently. At least in Latin America, I've seen that very commonly. Machismo is a worldview. Okay? It produces consequences. I don't know how it works here in the United States. Probably in less degree, but it goes that way. But you as a believer, you should care about that very, very well. Okay? Okay, next thing. I'm sorry, it's that way. Because of machismo too, the point says we see reality through our own cultural eyes. What happened? Oh. This is another form of machismo. Probably this happens more in the United States. Right? Maybe women don't like to do, you won't convince them to be, in bondage with domestic chores, but is this common on TV? Do you think little girls want to be like that? Do you think that little girls believe that the only chance they have in life is their sexual attraction to men? Is that true or a lie? It's a lie. And it will produce bondage. It will produce corruption, right? Injustice, oppression, poverty. It does. It does. So machismo is expressed in different ways, but the thing is that when it gets to people's worldview, then it produces all the consequences. And that's the risk, okay? Okay, next thing. Okay, this one. We have a man of one color, and there is a man with a different color. Which one has a better value? Who is better? Does that happen here in America? Right? It happens in my country too. discrimination, race, color, or social discrimination. I don't know how, but people manage to know that they value more than others, or others don't have the same dignity that you have. Right? Does that happen in America? And it's interesting because the same way that machismo and this one, the problem is not that I can consider others inferior. The problem is that others consider themselves inferior than the others. You know, it's a very cruel thing. It's not that I'm a bad guy because to me, nobody is good. That's an Indian, that's a black, that's a Chinese. It's not that, it's the other side. A little kid who gets born and thinks that he's not worth it. Can you believe that? It happens. I remember when I was in Bolivia. In Bolivia, we have a lot of indigenous people. And there are some white people too, city people. And I wanted to fight this in my kids from the beginning. So I encourage always my oldest son to make friends of all shades. And he had very nice friends. Some of them were indigenous boys. And there was one who was his best friend. He was indigenous, and my son is whiter than me. Comparing with the other one, I mean, that's a slight, but it works in Bolivia. So a friend of us called me and said, you know, I am organizing a soccer game. Why don't you bring your children? I have a lot of children here and we want to play. But he lives in a very nice place of the city, only white boys. I didn't realize that. So I said to my son, Matias, why don't you invite Jordi, the indigenous guy? Let's go to play soccer. Okay, yeah. And we took the car, we went there, and I was with my boys, and I came in, and immediately I realized that I made a mistake because nobody said any word. All of them were kind of 9, 8 years old, all the white boys there. And this little kid who had an indigenous appearance, as soon as he got intimidated. And he quietly went to a corner. Nobody told him anything. And the other kids just saw him and they were looking at their own faces like saying, this non-speaking language, no? Indian, no? They didn't want to play with him. But nobody said anything. Everything just was looking at each other. And he knew it, his own place. I belong here. Who told him? You know, it was a teaching without words. He realized that. And it's cruel. And in my country, a boy like him will not get a good education. He will not go to university. In some business, people won't work with him. They won't hire him for certain positions. Forever. And he didn't do anything yet. Is that evil? It is. Produces consequences and is very deep inside of us. You know, it's a worldview. You cannot take it away easily. It will come out with blood. Some people who are nice people, are believers, have it. I remember I was in a meeting when I was talking about this, but the picture was different. There were real people. And there was this nice lady sitting at the end of the room and with another group of ladies. And she was so kind. And she said, you know, Brother Arturo, you're wrong. God made everyone equal, you know. God is good. We are believers, and insisting one and another. And at the end said, okay, my sister, tell me, which one would you like to be your son-in-law? And then she said nothing. No? Because it's a worldview. I mean, sometimes when your worldview is not threatened, you're nice. Do you understand what I say? So when you have to preach, when you have to teach, when you don't have to pay, when you don't have to act against your worldview, everything is fine. But when your daughter brings a person of another color, you just get scandal. And try to convince her it's a bad idea. It's a bad idea because your worldview is taking you there. And he could be the most wonderful person she could ever find, but you won't agree with that. And you will make a wrong decision. Okay? Right? It's sad, but it's true. I sometimes want to help people that I consider inferior than me. But I'm so nice that I don't realize that I'm operating from that worldview. You know what? It won't work. It won't work. To get rid of that worldview is difficult. Some people will go to the grave with it. But you can expect God to help you and take it away. And once it is taken away, He will use you to change and to help others. I always deal with this in my community and the organization where I work. It was always an issue, in my opinion. You know, and sometimes you say, God, why doesn't it work? Well, it's hard to explain, you know. You haven't taken a class of Worldview with Arturo Cuba, that's why you don't know. But okay? Right?
I'd like to share something about
Okay, share it.
Worldview. When I was a young boy, we were talking about 5 or 6, and living on the reservation. I mostly spoke my native tongue, and but eventually, as I grew a little older, I struggled with inferiority. I always thought of white people as way above. I lowered myself. So I lived with that struggle. And but eventually I began to cope with it. But it was still there. I worked in a bank and I still had that until I came to Christ and all things.
Interesting, right? Interesting. We knew it. You know, the problem is not him. Well, he had his problems, but we have them too. I remember I met a guy who made an interesting project. I don't know who funded this project. Hello? Can you hear? Okay. I don't know who funded this project, but it was about taking people from different ethnic backgrounds, where this difference was the issue. Let's say white people and black people, young people, getting them together and sharing their own lives, especially the things narratives that can say what did they learn when they were children about the other ones. And it was not a Christian project, but it produced an incredible form of healing, spiritual healing, in my opinion, and how they became good friends and all that. You know, it takes time. It's hard, but that's sometimes what God is leading you to change before you do something else. You know, and it's true. Okay. Okay, this is very important. Igual machismo is very important. You will little by little be realizing many things. There are thousands of things that belong to our worldview, and we have to deal with them. Okay? Let's go for a definition. What is a worldview? A worldview is a subjective perception about the appearance of life and the universe. Yes, it's subjective. It's just what I think it is, like the family we saw before, right? That's a worldview. Shared by people with the same cultural upbringing. Yes, it's produced from my culture, you know. I see things the same way people in my culture see the same way. You know, and it's probably the opposite than the other culture. When they say culture shock, that phrase is probably expressing that. Okay? And he says, a worldview operates from a coherent system that is full of ideas, which in fact are only suppositions. Are women less valuable than men? That's a supposition. But we take it as a truth, okay? That have been deemed truthful, either consciously or unconsciously, through individual, group, and or generational experiences. A worldview is a very well elaborated thing. It's not something you can deal easily with it, okay? It continues. It says, a worldview is a natural function of human nature. Yes, we all have one. Without it, the development of human life is not possible. Whatever it is, for prosperity or for poverty, a worldview is the the basic power that moves life. Nobody can live without a worldview. It's impossible, okay? Then a worldview operates from a subconscious level, and because of that, people normally ignore the fact they have one. I like this part. A worldview, the number, 6 and 7. A worldview operates from a subconscious level, and because of that, people normally ignore the fact they have one. A worldview inevitably determines the short as well as the long-term decisions that every individual in a cultural group make regarding all aspects of life. There's something I like to use a lot to explain this. A worldview, once you get one, it operates subconsciously. You don't notice it's working. It's amazing, but we people in life, we take conscious decisions and subconscious decisions. Conscious decisions is what I like to eat, what school I like to go, how I like to dress, and things like that. But subconscious decisions are those you don't see. For instance, at what age is the right age for a woman to get married? Well, the answer is very simple. It does not belong to biology. It depends on the culture. It depends on the worldview. I live in Bolivia. I have lived in Guatemala. And in Guatemala, you could see girls of 12 years old getting married. 12 years old. Okay? In Bolivia, in certain places, lowlands, girls, it's okay if they get married around 15 years old. And it happens that a little girl, when she's getting 10 years old, subconsciously her mind is alerting her that the time is coming, and she doesn't notice that. It's amazing how it works. Then she's 13, and she sees very curiously how girls of 15 are talking about the thing. But who pushes her to hear is her worldview, and she doesn't know. Because the time is coming. It's amazing. While she consciously makes her own choices about what to eat and how to deal with things, you know, And when she's 15, she's this way, she's waiting for the boy. Okay? The same thing happened with boys. When they see girls around 14, they say, oh, look, she's almost ready. And when she's 15, he falls in love and he acts. Okay? What do you think about getting married at 15 years old? It's too early? Is it too early for you? It is, right? Because you belong to another culture. That's all. That's all. It's not because it's right or wrong, honestly. It's just the fashion of it, In Bolivia, we have lowlands where girls get married at 15, and we have highlands. And it's the opposite. It's amazing. In the highlands, they are more traditional, much more traditional. And a woman of 15 years old, she's too young. A man will never see her as ready to get married. He just wants a different woman. She wants a more mature woman. And when he sees a girl of 23, 24, he's more like his mother. She's okay. She's good for business. She will manage business. He finds more virtues and more mature girls. So something interesting happens. When in lowlands, a girl of 15 is waiting for a boy and he doesn't come. She gets 16 and, well, okay, let's give another chance. And he doesn't come. Well, 17, she knows that something is going wrong, When she gets 20, her friends will say, you are too old. Is she old? That's what you say. But men don't see her young. Because worldview is the way you see. And it's powered by ideas that make them see, oh, you are too old. No boy will be interested in you. But I have an idea. Why don't you go to the highlands? Those guys, they will love you. And that's what they do. All of a sudden you see a nice girl coming from a different part of the country, going to university or going to school, and she's just nice. But she didn't come to study, And then they like her and they get married. Okay, but it's amazing. It sounds like a story, but it's true. It's true. How you see women, too old, too young, how do you see marriage, how do you see children, all those things are not determined by a kind of modern, logical thinking. It's just your worldview. The same way that machismo and the same way that discrimination works. The same way. Just like that. Okay? You got it? Then, I was saying that, for instance, that's the type of decisions that work subconsciously. It means that because you have a worldview, you don't know it, but your brain made the arrangements for you to get married with a certain guy. And your brain will manage to introduce you to him without you knowing it. What about that? Fine, right? But how it works. You don't notice. But it's like an ant traveling in a boat. The ant can go here to eat a candy or there to eat a piece of bread, but the boat is going by itself to a direction that she doesn't know. It's a subconscious decision. Some people get poor that way. Can you believe that? Because it's a worldview, it's powerful. You can't stop it. And some people get rich because of that. Lucky them, no? They don't know it. Subconsciously, they make a lot of money. Sounds funny, but it works. There are some people who will never be poor. They can't. Their worldview always leads you to right decisions and to situations that you say, how they do it? While I'm really in the struggle, you know, but they just happily make a lot of money. It's interesting. Okay. What else? Okay. What time are we going to stop? At 12?
30 minutes.
Okay, 30 minutes. We are going to go to the third point where ideas have consequences, okay? And now we will try to talk about more biblical things. How can we work? How can we do? Okay, and the first thing we have to say is that we men and women, human beings, we are moral creatures. Okay, moral creatures. It means God created the universe. It's a physical universe. He put a lot of things there. But when He thought about us, because He made the universe for us, He made things in such a way that the universe becomes a moral order. Okay, what do I mean with that? What I mean is that everything you will get in life will come through your decisions. Everything you do, good or bad, will come through your decisions. Okay? So it's not that life is just that way. You made it, honestly. Okay? You made it. You probably don't know, but it's... So man has to always think about which way I'll go. You know? He has to make decisions. From the beginning in Genesis, we see that God created man and planted a garden, and man was working. He was very busy and said, look, come for a minute. I want to show you something. You know, make your choice, this tree or that tree. I don't know, God. They look very nice. Okay, I'll give you an idea. If you eat this one, you die. If you eat this one, you won't. So, I know you will have to make a choice, but please, don't make a mistake. Men always make choices. Always, every time. Consciously or subconsciously. Okay? All the time. So you cannot escape from that. So it is very important that you watch your worldview. You watch other people's worldview. Yeah? Because we are going to make decisions, and decisions will produce consequences. Huh? Okay. And those decisions will lead us to understand that decisions based on truth will produce life. And decisions based on lies will produce death. I want to make something clear. When I say life, I want you to understand that God made the universe and made us to enjoy biblical prosperity. But please understand this very well. Biblical prosperity. And when I say biblical prosperity, I'm not saying money. Okay? That's very at the bottom of the list. I'm not saying money. It's not the prosperity gospel, God has designed life so you to enjoy it in many ways. The full enjoyment of life is His purpose. And money will probably have to do with it in certain levels. But it's not directly that, the greatest good of this thing, okay? So it's important to think this, that the normal state of life is biblical prosperity. Okay? That's the normal state of life. God wants that for us. That's a theological certainty. You cannot say, oh, maybe God doesn't want me to have this or to do that. No, that's a wrong thinking. God always wants that. Biblical prosperity. Okay? But we are going to talk much more about that further. Okay? But this is a mathematical thing, an equation, very important. You have to bear this in mind all the time. So you have a place to aim. Biblical prosperity. Biblical prosperity is not even personal prosperity, it's social prosperity. Okay? Maybe you will work hard for biblical prosperity and don't make much money. But you have enriched many other people. Okay? We will talk about that much more later. So, when we say truth produce life, we mean that. We mean life as education for girls and boys of all colors. Imagine a world where everybody gets the best education. It would be wonderful. Imagine people getting great families, all of them. Imagine people producing jobs, working hard, enjoying life in all forms, art, and all kind of things, in all ways, practical ways. It's not every time in Latin America we tend to be very subjective in this. When I say, what do you think it means that truth produced life? Oh, well, I think that there will be a lot of love. Yeah, that's okay. Love is fine, but tell me something I can eat. Something like that. Why? I don't know why when we think about the spiritual things, we just go straight. But God made this life, this one, so you can enjoy it. I like when I read in the Bible when the Jewish people say, my table is full of food. My cup is overflowing. My children are like those branches of the tree that goes through the window. So he likes to have children. He likes to have his wife, to enjoy life, to eat a lot, to have a lot of things. Then God loves me. It's not that mentality of poverty and, it's not that. So if you want those products of life, then you have to watch for truth. That's very important. How you can assemble that in your worldview, in other people's worldview. But history can show us that whatever Christianity, in any country where Christianity, especially Reformed Christianity, arrived and was embraced as a religion, those societies flourished. Maybe not perfect, but you cannot compare Germany with Paraguay, or you cannot compare, United States with China. There is prosperity. And wherever prosperity was produced, Christianity had to do with it. And let me tell you this. When man disobeyed, God cursed creation. And he said, if you eat this fruit, you will die. Now, we don't understand very well what will happen, but I mean, when God said, He meant it. And the next thing we read in the Bible, it happened in the 3rd chapter, and when we get to the 6th chapter, you see that whole humanity got corrupted. Everyone. What happens when you buy a piece of meat? Let's say a chicken. I like chicken. Okay? You come from the market, you take it out of the fridge, the chicken is there, you put it on the table, then the phone rings and they call you for an emergency and you rush to the airport and leave and you forget the chicken on the table. And you will get back in a month. What will you find? That the chicken got corrupted. Okay, that's exactly what is supposed to happen with humanity. It got corrupted in a process that cannot be stopped. When He said, you'll die, that's it. He will get corrupted until He's completely destroyed. So life is not possible. Biblical prosperity is not possible. So instead of saying, for instance, transformation, because this is a workshop of transformation, the only way God, imagine the chicken, it's stinky, you don't know what to do, but somebody tells you, I have the recipe to change it. You can have a nice dinner tonight. Oh, really? What could I do? Do this and that, and you have something, a substance that you pour on the chicken, and miraculously it becomes fresh. You even poured out too much, and there are feathers, and it wants to walk. But it is interesting that that's the story of the Bible. Brothers and sisters, you are not supposed to be sitting in those tables. You are not supposed to be people thinking about helping others, worshiping a God. That is called not transformation. That is called redemption. We have to understand the meaning of that word. That's what we want to bring to others, redemption. God is going to bring you from the death to be alive. When Jesus said, I came for you to have, to have life and abundantly, He didn't mean that to help you a little bit more, to give you a little bit more things. No, it's to bring you from the death to the living state of life, biblical prosperity, That's what He said. In fact, we sometimes think that He was good news. He's going to give me a little bit more things. That's not true. He was going to change the story. But He uses truth, Now we have a great relationship with the Lord. We can pray. We can fast. We can get together. We can ask the Lord for grace. And He will pour out that substance that will make us more alive, will change our minds, will give us grace to change machismo, discrimination, everything. He will allow us to be much more powerful. And then He will lead us to help others. It's important to happen. Otherwise, we cannot just go. Things won't work. Things won't work. Okay? So, redemption is what we should understand, how to get to biblical prosperity. We want others to be happier. But we need redemption in ourselves first. Okay? So, I don't want to go further. Don't you have questions? I like to. I want to go to these pictures later.
You said redemption is something we should understand.
Yes, redemption means that redemption is a authoritative decision of God. So God said, you will die, okay? So even when you are dead, supernaturally He acts and brings you to life. It's like resurrection. You cannot improve life because it cannot be improved. We are supposed to be in a different condition, but the reason we are here in some way of prosperity is because the grace of God, redemptive grace of God that worked probably in the past. We are our parents or grandparents, and we are still enjoying the fruits. But don't make a mistake. Don't think that it's just something that with money and ideas and good projects you can make it improve. You can't. Okay, you have always to think that there are some roots on this, and it leads to truth. And the moment this country abandons God's truth, it will be like the chicken. It's just a matter of time that you will see how corruption devours everyone. Okay? Right? This is very important. Some more questions? No? Is that clear? Or repeat everything again?
Pretty good example of the chicken.
Mm.
So you just imagine leaving, I mean, a chicken, and then you get maggots, you get the smell, you get the smell of death, and then we were given a special ingredient by God. You know, that special ingredient, He's not going to tell us. We're not supposed to know. But in reality is that, you know, the chicken comes back.
Mm.
And out of all that smell and the maggots, all of a sudden it wants to walk.
Yeah.
Which is really an interesting way of, a perfect example of how Jesus had passed away on the cross. And then the third day He was risen. I mean, even if you put a spoiled meat in the garbage in this heat in Phoenix at 100 and, 102, the meat will start smelling and it will start, going through the process. But imagine that in our spiritual life. It is the most perfect example. I'm just like,
Yeah, this is an important paradigm because we mostly underestimate, the thing we are doing. We think it's just money. We need someone, raisers, and someone who can, give us a little hand. We can manage it. No, you can't. You need the grace of God because it's a redemptive process. It starts always with the Lord, working first in me, with truth in me. And if He says that I am faithful, He will extend this further and further. It is very important. So it's a paradigm. Don't trust your organization, don't trust your funds, don't trust those things. Those things won't change anything. There are very good ideas. I always hear very good ideas. Look, if we get some money, we can do this. Yeah, that's fine. But those things don't produce redemption. When you lead with injustice, when you lead with corruption, when you lead with poverty, when you lead with those things, you need to understand how redemption works. Okay, and it's a biblical word. You have to study it and to understand how God uses it. He paid a high price for that. Okay? Another question or comment? I don't want to go. Oh no. Okay, well, let's go. Yeah. Anyway. No, it's okay. 10 more minutes. We can repeat this again. We will need to.
my husband was asking about what that word, I almost said machato, but
Machismo, machism.
I thought you explained it earlier, but I just...
Dwight, help me. Machism. Women have no value. Only men.
It's the idea that men are superior to women.
Machismo.
Men are
Machismo.
superior to women. He made us head, He made us first, she came from the rib, she's second, she's lower, she's beneath us, we're superior.
Yeah, we are better. I mean, you know, it's in some cultures, you know, when they say, oh, what was, a man or a girl? A girl, oh, man. You know, in some way, people get to think.
The idea men are more powerful than women.
Yes,
Or superior.
exactly. If you think, for instance, in some tribes or primitive places, just because man is stronger and faster, he think he's superior than women, you know. But God, I mean, think about that. Men and women are together. They represent the essence of humanity. When my kids say bad things about women, I always say, think about that. Your mother is a woman. You know, your daughter, your sister is a woman. My daughter is a woman. So it's me, myself. I'm laughing about myself. So you have to act in the mind of people to understand that whatever you say about a woman, you are talking about yourself. You know, but that's a kind of understanding that sometimes people in primitive forms of life don't get to think. You know, so it's you have to make a little bit more of philosophy with it, you know. But I get kids can get that very well, you know. But in all over the world, you're going to see a different version, a different story. Someone told me that in Korea, I guess it was Darrow. Darrow Miller writes a book about women. It's called Nurturing Nations. It's a wonderful book. You should buy it and read it. And you'll see how, because he has gone through all over the world and he has collected stories about how women are oppressed in the whole world and where do those ideas came from, you know. But the Lord said, the devil, you know, he's a liar from the beginning. I mean, he's working hard. He's not doing other thing than just, you know, coming with a smart way to put some ideas in children, and that's it. They will destroy themselves for generations, you know. His power is based on that and how he manages lives. So you have to work hard to make your children understand how, you know, the value of people, the value of women in one way and another. And the younger they are, the better, you know.
I like how you explained that about between women and boys and girls, where a mother asks the girl to do the dishes while the boy goes watch TV. I think in my family we all have boys. My mother doesn't have a choice but to tell one of us guys to say, you know what, you better do choice. So I think I kind of compare that to today as what if I had a lot of sisters? Would I have been grown up to be a loser, or would I have been grown up to be somebody that is depressed all the time, or like the way you explained, you know, if things are failing on me, I would give up easily because I wasn't chosen to do a chore when I was a young man. Whereas if my sister did it all the time, you know, I guess I'm looking back on it, thinking, you know what, my mother didn't have a choice. She had to tell one of us guys to do it. And I think it does make a difference in our world today.
Yeah.
The way we see our world, the world.
Remember my friend from India who liked to eat with his hands? This nice guy. Well, machismo is a very strong thing in India because what I said, women need to suffer, and we are going to help her. And I remember we were talking to him, and all the stories he was saying, we could, you know, configure how was his world. And I was with my wife, you know, laying on the bed and saying, did you remember what he said about this and that? And what the idea was, when she asked him, "How is your day? What do you do?" And he said, "Oh, well, I wake up very early in the morning because it's nice to find men drinking coffee at the park and to chat." "Oh, really? Yeah." Then my wife calls me to eat. Yeah, okay, great. "And what do you do after eating?" "Go to the park with my coffee." "Oh, yeah. And then what happens later?" "My wife called me to eat." And after that, so he spent his life resting. And who takes care of the children? Who goes and pick up pieces of wood for fire, which is hard? Who goes to the river and takes water for cooking? Who does all things of life? My wife. Can you imagine that? And it comes from the same thing. Now, this man was useful for nothing. Because he got a scholarship, which was a work and a study scholarship. He had to work 4 hours. And all the people in the institution, were trying to come up with an idea, what can we do with him? It was amazing to try to make him work. And he wouldn't work even if he wanted, because his worldview would not allow him to do it. It was amazing. It was funny. He was not able even to pick up trash from the street. Nothing at all. But he was so nice and preached wonderfully and can tell you amazing testimonies. That's all right. But the Lord said, go and make disciples. And when you don't do it, Christianity is worth a penny.